Affirmative action. Everyone's favorite, non-controversial topic of discussion. Those in opposition to affirmative action argue that it's wrong to discriminate against white students by holding them to a higher standard when evaluating their college applications. Whereas proponents of affirmative action respond that we need to help minorities gain their footing in a society which has been historically unjust to them. But what if their premise was flawed? What if affirmative action didn't help minority students advance in life or society? What if it actually hurt them? That's right, there's data suggesting that affirmative action has led to higher dropout rates for black students, has resulted in them disproportionately occupying the bottom of their classes, and has even isolated them from their fellow student. This is due to a phenomenon known as mismatch. What is mismatch? It's basically when students can't keep up with the workload and don't fit in at a prestigious university because they aren't qualified to be there and were only given entry due to their minority status. For example, let's imagine there's a young African-American man named Joseph who scores a 30 on his ACT. There are many perfectly respectable schools which would admit someone with his score, and he could have a wonderfully accomplished tenure at any of them. But he opts instead to go to Harvard, because affirmative action qualifies him to gain entry, despite the fact that he would have probably needed a 32 or higher to get in without affirmative action. Good for Joseph, right? Well, maybe not. At Harvard, Joseph now has to compete with students possessing more impressive academic abilities than his own. This not only increases the likelihood that he'll be at the bottom of his class, he's actually less likely to build friendships, because the data show that students are less socially integrated on campuses where they aren't properly academically matched. As you may have guessed, this recipe for disaster means he's more likely to drop out once the program begins moving too quickly for him. And according to the numbers, once he drops out, he's unlikely to re-enroll. Not at Harvard, not at one of the less prestigious schools he qualified for, not anywhere. Had affirmative action not shoehorned Joseph into a more rigorous program than he had qualified for, he would be more likely to have a degree in his desired field. Competing with similarly matched students would increase his likelihood of having a successful academic career, but unfortunately for Joseph, he was misplaced. And while he could have graduated summa cum laude at a more appropriate institution, now all he has is a high school diploma and some debt. Affirmative action. And black and Hispanic folks aren't the only minorities being hurt by these policies. Asian students experience difficulties due to affirmative action as well, but in a very different way. See, proponents of affirmative action always seem to leave out the inconvenient detail that creating demographic parity in higher education means ensuring there are less Asians attending prestigious universities. You heard that right. Affirmative action intentionally and actively excludes Asian students from higher education. According to data from the AAMC, if you have a GPA of 3.5 and an MCAT score of 30, you have a 91% chance of being admitted to medical school. If you're black. If you're Hispanic, your odds fall to 79%. If you're white, you have a 55% chance of being admitted. And if you're Asian, that falls to just 50%. So remember, despite the way it's often portrayed, the affirmative action debate isn't black people against white people. It's affirmative action against everyone. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. If you find that Freedom Toons is producing valuable content, please consider donating at one of the links in the description. We really need your help so that we can continue to pump out the comedic and educational content on a weekly basis. Thank you so much, and God bless.